12 o'clock on your Wednesday afternoon. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. I'm not Terry Ford. I'm Tyler Head. I'm still here. Been here since 5:30. That's Mike Gillespie.
Hello.
Who is filling in for me today on the halftime show. You've never done a halftime show with Terry Ford yet, have you?
No. This will be the first one, I think.
Here's what you have to learn. Terry is notoriously 3 to 4 minutes late.
Taking notes.
To every version of the show.
3 to 4 minutes.
And I'm usually on the other side producing, but because I filled in for Bill today, I'm leaving after this. But I usually am by myself for the first couple minutes. It's gotten so notorious to the point we have somebody on our text line that says that their job, they taste like dollar bets every day to see how late Terry's going to be. So somebody's like, all right, awesome. I got 3 minutes, I got 4 minutes, I got 2 minutes. And, he's somewhere usually within there. But if he's here at the beginning of the show, that is a very rare thing.
That's
so
awesome.
Now you know.
Yeah, now I know. Thank you for not making me start the show by myself.
I was not going to do that to you.
I think I would have been like, hello. I didn't know this was a solo mission today.
Talking to yourself on the radio is an acquired taste. I'll say that much.
Yes, it is. There are a few people who do it very, 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 very well. But I've always said that radio is much better when you've got like multiple voices involved, not just one for 9 hours.
Talking to the wall is not always the most fun thing in the world.
No.
So you have to be very prepared if you are going to do those kind of things. But Terry will be in here at some point.
Hey,
in the next couple of minutes.
That's cool. What? Did you have any flooding or anything? See, this is what we're going to talk about for the next 2 minutes.
So I'm thankful that it does not look like it's raining, and I've not, knock on wood, had any flooding as of right now. I'm looking ahead to tomorrow's forecast because that's where the bad stuff comes in.
Not great.
Like my apartment complex has one of those, what do you call it? It's not a pond. Watery areas
like
next
drainagey
area next to the entrance that I'm very afraid is going to be flooding tomorrow if it rains hard enough. So hopefully that doesn't happen as Terry Ford has now finally made his appearance. If you had 2.5 minutes for your bet today, you win. Congratulations.
Gillespie can't just do this by himself?
No.
I will see. I was not going to leave him to his own devices by himself.
No, my agent would not like that.
But I've informed him that the tradition of the show is you come in at about 12:03. So sometimes you got to hold down the fort for a couple of minutes. But he's ready to go now. So I warmed him up for you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah, it's a warm-up routine.
Acts like he's been awake since like 4 o'clock in the morning.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Man.
Yeah.
Fine work.
This is good. Passing the baton.
We got Ed Bird here. We got Michael. Oh man, we're rolling.
Hello.
We are rolling. How you doing, Mike Gillespie?
I'm good. We've never done a show together.
We have never done a show together. And I came in late for the first one. Hey, you're welcome.
Yes. No, this is why I did LSD this morning, so I'm ready. Just kidding. That was
just this morning?
Just this one. Yes, just this once.
Okay.
Just for you.
As you say, being
it's
in the media
be a great
business,
day.
I was like, okay, it's just another day that ends in Y. What's your deal, man?
For the hurricane.
Exactly.
Just passing the time.
Now, doing TV for all the years you did TV.
I did.
Obviously, we do things differently during all this kind of stuff. But TV, man, you got people out. Did you ever have to go out and do anything? Because you're a sports guy. Did you ever go out and do the weather thing?
I was fortunate. My previous station did not make us do a whole lot of weather coverage for sports, but I did a couple times. But it was always like easy. It was always like, we need you to go out to DHEC and cover a press conference and then stand in front of the building for a live shot.
Right.
They'd make, these poor reporters who are, obviously getting paid like $12 an hour and no benefits and
go dodge trees.
Yeah, exactly. And they're standing in 5 feet of water, with downed power lines right next to them. And but fortunately, I didn't have to do. Now I know a lot of sports guys who have to do that. Scotty Eisberg is my favorite. He's down in Charleston, and he will go straight into a flooded zone head first with the microphone. And he's great entertainment, but that was never me.
Now, if they came to you and said, hey, Mike, we need you to go stand in the 6 feet of water around open power lines and dodge redwood trees. Are you like, screw you?
I think I would have, I don't know, like 10 years ago, I think I would have. Not now. I think I'd be like, my wife and I, we're happy living.
I like my health.
We like to be alive. We're just not going to do that. Plus, you have to, everyone knows this, people in journalism don't make a whole lot of money, right? And so it's almost like the risk reward, like why do that? It's your job, and I'm not saying they shouldn't do that, and I'm not saying I don't have admiration, because I absolutely do. It has nothing to do with the journalists and everything to do with the management side,
right?
And the money of it. It's sort of like, I don't know. I always felt that way. Like, you're not paying me enough to do this.
My sentence would start with, so are you giving me a raise?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or like just anything, like, can we get free pizza at least at the end of the day? And they do that on election night. Like, that's a famous thing in the journalism world, right? Like, on election night, you get a whole bunch of pizzas and whatever. But for storms, like, that never really happened. Like, it wasn't.
Wouldn't you think, though, because one of the greatest things about media is management knows the best way to make media people happy is feed them.
Yes.
We are the best moochers on the face of the earth.
Absolutely, 100%.
So, most people would go, hey, I want money for this. We go, like you said, can you give me some pizza, wings, maybe, grab some cookies?
Anything. A compliment. Just like, I'll take that. I'll take that too.
You have been through the war. You need a hug. Well, you got some PTSD.
I do. Yeah, it's you have no idea, sir. You have no idea.
Well, you think about it for a minute.
Yep.
That if you feed me after an election, right? Well, I've just been up for a while covering whatever. I'm at the polls, or I'm wherever I'm at, right? Wouldn't you say, let's feed you after you've risked your life for a period of time?
Right.
How about a sub?
Yeah, a sub. Like, I mean, anything. Saltine crackers, like, just whatever it takes. I mean, seriously, like, I mean, food, shelter, and compliments. That's all I need.
Yeah, it's funny because, again, we all know that we're in the media and we're not tarring roofs, and we're not doing, we're not cutting wires like we're not doing things like Hurt Locker.
Nope.
I mean, but it's so funny that when people in the media have had bad management. The PTSD is real, our boy Dave Adair.
Yeah,
Dave worked at a shop for years and years and years. No one's got more. Well, you might be competing with Dave. No one's got more PTSD from radio than Dave. Dave thinks he walks in, someone's going to fire him. That's Dave. If I go, Dave, can I talk to you for a minute?
He's looking for the pink slip every day.
All I got to do is, Dave, you got a minute? Why, am I getting fired? No, Dave, that's not it.
You know what? I love Dave so much that if that happened, I think that I would give him my current unemployment. I think I would. I would funnel somehow. And I hope that's not against the law. I'm sure it is. But
well, thank God you didn't admit it on 40,000 watts of FM stereo that you just are going to get Dave the money.
I have to say too, TV here was great. Like, I had no issues with management here. Like that, it was always just it's always parent companies, right?
Oh, absolutely.
People who just have no idea who you are. They don't care about you. You're a number, right? Like,
you're on a spreadsheet.
You make X amount of dollars every year. That. Those are the people that are always hardest to deal with.
Usually the home shop isn't the problem.
Yeah.
It's usually the corporate, corporate Satan that is the problem.
Yep.
Absolutely. We don't have that problem with Cumulus Media, though.
No, this is a great operation.
I mean, from corporate down has been smooth and perfect.
I actually wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Cumulus.
There you go.
Like, I said yes to you because I was like, wait, who are they owned by again? Oh, Cumulus. Yes, of
Terry,
course.
I really don't like you, but Cumulus, I'll come in and I'll work for Cumulus.
I'll be there tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. So we have our weather thing going on. Obviously, here so far, we're in a little bit of wind, but rain there's no rain happening right now. Tomorrow's supposed to get ugly again.
Yep.
And obviously, the low country is, they've had their issues.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't do weather updates as a rule, but we'll yap about it. And we see something, we talk about it. And again, like we always say, like tomorrow, if you don't have to go anywhere, don't go anywhere. Stay home, hunker down. Make sure you got a lot of toilet paper and milk.
Yeah.
Because and bread.
Yeah. 100%.
See, where I'm from, that's always the joke. Because you go to a store in like Baltimore or the DMV, and there's going to be bad weather. All the toilet paper.
Snowpocalypse.
Oh, yeah. No, toilet paper gone, bread gone, milk gone. Gone.
Yep.
Forget the other stuff, right? We don't know. I only got bread and toilet paper and milk. And I always thought to myself, I typically have toilet paper in the house.
Yep.
So I don't really need to run out and hoard toilet paper.
Yeah.
I kind of have toilet paper.
Yeah.
I'm usually good.
It's like when COVID started.
Remember that?
Oh, I mean, it was just like.
I remember. Now here, I'll ask you here.
Yeah.
Were they putting up signs? Only take 3 cases, please.
Yes. Yeah. No, there were signs that it was like one per person or 2 per person, whatever it was. Like we had to resort to I think it was 2-ply off of Amazon.
Oh God!
Oh God!
It
was the most uncomfortable year and a half.
Around the house? Just some sandpaper, maybe, which more comfortable.
And bubble wrap. Yeah.
Hey, grab me that newspaper from out in the basement, will you?
Exactly. It was awful. But no, I mean, if you don't have to go anywhere tomorrow, then don't. Just hang. My wife actually. It's so funny. We thought it was going to get bad kind of yesterday because I was talking to, some people that I still know in TV, and they're like, yeah, if you don't have to go anywhere, just don't, you know.
Oh,
and so I texted my wife and I was like, Caroline, you should probably come home, it's going to get bad. So she comes home at 11:30 and we're watching it, and it's like, oh, this isn't bad. She totally could have stayed.
She looked at you and went, I'm not taking advice from you ever again.
Yeah, she's just like, okay. And her coworkers are texting her glad you're safe.
Thank God you're okay. The wind's up to 4 miles an hour now.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez. All right, we're going to get back in here. Our buddy Mike Gillespie's hanging out with us. Ed Bird punching the buttons. We're going to come back here on the halftime show. Lenora Sellers speaking to the media, who, look, let's face it, is the starting quarterback of the South Carolina Gamecocks. No matter what anybody says. God love Robbie Ashford. You're the backup.
Yeah.
Lenora Sellers spoke to the media yesterday. We'll get some Lenora Sellers sound and some of his thoughts as he is rolling through his first summer camp as the starting quarterback at South Carolina. That's next. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Mike Gillespie, Ed Bird. Dave Adair's still hanging around.
Yeah.
Honey buns. He just wants honey buns.
Oh, I thought that was his nickname.
Yeah. We're here.
I was like, what?
No, that's real. It's real.
Okay.
We're here till 3 on the game.
Oh, man.
(803-875-MENS). Terry, you giving that number again? Yes, because you haven't gone to the men's clinic of South Carolina yet, and you've got issues, and you're just saying, I'll be okay. I'll be all right. Well, sometimes it doesn't get okay or all right. You're still not sleeping any better. You still don't have the life drive, the professional drive, sex drive, whatever drive is just not happening. Your workouts stink. Your recovery from workouts stink. You can't remember what you used to remember off the top of your head. Now you're leaving little Post-it notes all over the house, and they're falling off, and you're still forgetting stuff. It could be low testosterone. It's that simple. 803-875-MENS. Just call the men's clinic. Set up an appointment. Dr. Dan and the staff will sit and they'll actually listen to you. If they think you might have low testosterone, they'll do some lab work. If it comes back low T, they will put you on a program specifically designed for you. It's the Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Mike Gillespie hanging in today. Tyler was hanging in for Bill. Ed Bird is here hanging in for Tyler, who's hanging in for Bill, and Mike Gillespie's hanging in for Tyler.
Hello.
Mike Gillespie will be hanging in for Jay on Friday with Elijah, and Elijah will be hanging in for Elijah.
Okay. All right.
We got it all?
No. Can you say that again?
No way. There's no way I can do that again.
I hear people tuning out.
Don't blame them. All right. So Lenore Sellers talks to the media. So obviously you've been covering this for a long time. And Sellers gave us that little tease, a little taste, right? Mm-hmm. It was like you're at the ice cream store. Can you give me a taste? They give you a little spoonful, and now you want the whole thing.
Right.
Right. We saw these things last year that made us all excited. Mm-hmm. But we also know there's a learning curve for most folks.
Yeah.
Where are you at on the, okay, this he's never done this before as the starter, but yeah, he's got a ton of ability and upside. How are you at looking at what he could be short, medium, long term to where he probably is now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first and foremost, it starts with him being a leader, right? With his teammates. I think that's the mark of a strong football team, right? Is when you've got a leader at quarterback. From everything that I've heard, he's been a great leader this offseason, put in the work. I honestly, Terry, I really like the fact that Carolina now has this run-pass option with their quarterback that we didn't necessarily see, with obviously one of their most talented quarterbacks that's ever played in Spencer Rattler, but, he wasn't the fastest guy in the world. Right. It's not like he was taken off. So now I'm really interested to see what this offense looks like. I think that's the most interesting part, I guess, of this offseason is, we know that the offense has been, kind of a pro set for a little while. Does that change now? I mean, you're not going to change things and blow up what you have overnight, but, do you start putting in option plays, because you've got a guy like Rocket Sanders who, just to look at his name, he's a fast kid, and you've got a lot of speed there in the backfield now. So what do you do? I think that there's great potential there to run the football, something that we haven't seen in a little while. Last year it was obviously because Spencer doesn't have the legs for it, and they didn't have really in my opinion, a true running back coming out of fall camp. Now you do. You've got 3 or 4 of them that are pretty good. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously there's a learning curve. I don't love the fact that Lenore Sellers is a freshman. He played last year. Obviously he's got some time under his belt. It's not like he's coming in, with a totally blank slate. But honestly, Terry, I think that can also help because there's not as much of there's not as much of an expectation there. I guess he can come in sort of a little bit more free. I will say this, if you look at the NIL deal, right, he's your starting quarterback.
Yes.
Right? Like, no offense to Robbie Ashford, but I think that's how they do things nowadays, right? Like, the best players, the most important players get, the cars and whatnot.
Typically get the dough,
yeah. And, he has, and he's earned it, obviously. But I'm interested to see, too, how much Robbie Ashford pushes Lenore Sellers because it's not like you got a backup quarterback who doesn't have any experience. A couple years at Oregon, didn't play there, but, he had, 10 starts at Auburn, 22 game appearances. I mean, he can take off with his legs, too. A lot of people don't realize that. So it's interesting to see what that battle looks like, too. And I think that's a good thing for Lenore Sellers. He's got a guy that he can kind of rely on and study with and maybe look up to, too.
Yeah, and Dow Logan said, he said this offseason to the point of let's see what this offense is. And he builds his offense around the skill set of the quarterback, which is a different skill set than Spencer Rattler. To your point, It's going to be interesting. Lenore Sellers talking to the media yesterday. Let's get cut 3, Ed Bird. Things Lenore believes he needs to do to improve.
I'd say knowledge and communication is the 2 biggest things I've improved on since last year. And something I can work on is probably just like the smaller things, the fundamentals of it, staying calm in the pocket, just keep going through my progression and things like that.
So again, that's that from the neck up stuff, right? That's the things that, are boring and dull and we don't like to talk about, but they're really, really important is, look, quarterbacks, And obviously, at the NFL level, you have to be able to process from the neck up or you can't play the position.
Right.
In college, if you're a physical freak, like Michael Vick. Michael Vick will admit to you, it wasn't a lot of me going studying film to process, right?
Sure.
Michael Vick was like, I can throw it 100 yards downfield and I'm faster than you and I'm going to make you miss me and break ankles, right?
Yep. Cam Newton at Auburn.
Yeah, Cam just said, I'm going to run you over.
Right.
So, but for most quarterbacks, you have to have the neck up game. So it's interesting. That's what Lennar Sellers brings up is the things like processing and some of the things you're doing that involve the tediousness of the job.
Yeah. Can we also shout out the Glasses Club? Like, I'm wearing glasses now.
Here I say, who's wearing glasses in this room?
Yeah. No one except, well, actually, Ed is. I think Ed's wearing glasses too. Yay, Glasses Club. It's funny, man. Like, somebody can correct me here. I mean, obviously, Georgia's kicker a couple years ago, what was his name? Oh, the guy that they had forever. He wore glasses anyway. But I don't remember like a quarterback consistently wearing glasses, and that to me is great. I know that's such an aside, but I absolutely love that, by the way. He just looks smart is what I'm really trying to say. I mean, look, he is a gifted athlete. We saw the throws last year against Furman, albeit against Furman. But, I mean, some of those throws, man, like Spencer, I'm not sure could have made. On the run, back of the end zone against Furman. I mean, that's great. He's perfect. I also, honestly, Terry, I also think the schedule sets up really well for a freshman quarterback. I mean, it's not great because obviously you've got 8 ranked teams in the preseason coaches poll on your schedule, which really stinks. I think the only team that has more is Florida with 9. However, you're not starting out of the gate against like a North Carolina on a neutral field. It's Old Dominion at home. It's a game that you should win. You get into the flow. And then, you go to Kentucky, but look, Kentucky, I don't think that they're world beaters this year. It's not like you have to go to LSU or go to Georgia. Like we've seen some of those games sort of break the spirit of this team early on. And I don't really think that the schedule sets up well. I actually think Kentucky is a manageable game for Carolina. They could get to 2-0, coming back home, which I think this is exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, I feel like Old Dominion's a nice soft starting point. I really do. And, to me, the defense is going to have to, especially the first month of the year, defense is going to have to maybe carry the water, so to speak, while this offense gets its legs. Now, look, they could kick it into gear much sooner than I expect them to do on offense because there's so many question marks, but there's also so much ability and so much potential, right? Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this the other day. There's 4 guys that you think are going to be starters on offense. Obviously, Sellers, Sanders,
Nick Harbor.
Nick Harbor, most likely you feel like. The tight end, Josh Simon, and Varshawn Lee somewhere on the offensive line is going to start. Yeah. But there's so many question marks, you really don't know what you don't know. So it feels like the defense is going to have to step up and really kind of carry things in September while these guys figure things out. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But that's just the feel of it,
Yeah, I mean, Shane was asked last week, I think it was last week, in his weekly press conferences that he's doing now, preseason and then on into the season. I think the first question he was asked was, is there a position group that you're really focused on? And, he started out by saying, I'm just going to give you some coach speak, and he admitted it. But then, I've learned with coaches, if you really listen, if you really, really pay attention, you can figure out the ones that are a point of emphasis, right? And he finally got around to it. I mean, he mentioned almost every single position, like any, smart coach would do.
That's what they do, yeah.
But then at the end, he really kind of hammered home 2 spots, and they were both on offense, I felt like. 1, wide receiver. Shocker, right? Like, how are you going to replace, one of the best wide receivers that's come through Carolina? Okay, you got a guy named Nick Harbor, but it's not like he actually, was this incredible, freak last year. I mean, he's obviously a freak of an athlete, but, he wasn't wowing anybody last year. I think they're looking for him, obviously, to take a step up, but who's, that wide receiver 2 and 3? And then on the offensive line, We saw it in the spring game. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of depth there. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but it just seems like that might be a major area of concern, offensive line, and then kicker, right? Like, who's going to be your kicker? There's a kicking battle. And, we haven't seen one of those in a while at USC. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of question marks, and question marks on offense. To your point, when you got two safeties coming back that are all SEC talents, in DQ Smith and Nick Emanwari, both local guys, by the way. Shout out. And a great defensive line, a lot of depth there, great depth at linebacker, right? Like, I think you're right. I think that this team is going to kind of be defense first, maybe through those first couple of games. But that's not necessarily a bad place to be either, I don't think.
We'll get back in here. The two smart-looking guys, Mike Gillespie and Ed Bird, and then the dumb-looking guy without glasses, me, Terry Ford. We'll talk more about Lenore Sellers. We'll hear Sellers talking about the difference in the playbook. And also, I want to talk about the time each cut is on our little cut list, because it tells me something that's kind of interesting. Huh. We'll get into that. Halftime show. Mike Gillespie in for Tyler. We're hanging till 3 here on the game. what we're talking about, Carolina football. How much smarter you are if you wear glasses. And also, well, you look smarter.
Yeah.
And then
You get to make that noise too.
And then going into the deep, dark psyche of Michael Espy's issues with TV management over the years. So that's what we got.
Oh, no. They're all fine people. No, love them to death.
So anyway, we're hanging here. Michael Espy in for Tyler here on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Ed Bird, captaining the ship here on the game. All right, so Lenore Sellers talking to the media yesterday. The other cut I want to get to, Ed, is cut 7. Last year, obviously, like you said, Mike, you're running a pro-style offense with a quarterback who has just got a howitzer for a right arm. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be out here making plays with his legs. He's really a guy who is giving you from a production and ability level from the pocket. He's a pocket passer.
Yep.
Now you have a guy who's a dual threat in Lenore Sellers. He can run, but he can throw it. We've seen him. He has the ability to throw as well. Here's Lenore Sellers talking about the difference in the playbook from last year to this year.
I'll say it's still built around the quarterback strength, so it's a little bit of extra, like drop back, play action, still running the ball, things of that nature. So whatever we're good at, that's what it'll be called in the game, called in practice and stuff.
Okay, so basically, a little bit more running, maybe put some more play action in, whatever the case. Again, and I love the idea that Dow Loggins, and we all know there are offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators who don't do this. Mm-hmm. Dow Loggins is very open with, I build the offense around the strength of my quarterback.
Sure.
Now, that's simple and logical in theory, but you get the ego of some of these guys.
Yeah.
You're running my offense my way, but that's not my skill set. I don't care. You're going to run my offense, and you're going to go find my skill set.
That never made any sense to me, Terry. Like, it's almost like if I was the player, I'd be like, well, then why did you recruit me? Mm-hmm. Like, if you know what I'm good at, then why did you essentially hire me to do this? Like, this is insane. No, I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued by, how the running game looks. Especially bringing in a guy like Sean Elliott, or a specific run game coordinator. I mean, you have to understand when Sean Elliott was here, nothing, I won't say everything went well, but at least under Spurrier, like 90% of his time under Spurrier went well. 90%. So you bring back a guy like that who's incredibly important to what USC is going to do this year. And they can actually do that now that they have running backs. They can actually play action. No one was biting last year. It's like you're trying to fake us out with a guy who came in here from Charleston as a quarterback, who turned wide receiver, who's now a running back, who's a great person and a great player. And like, in my opinion, Takarion Joyner will go down as one of the greatest USC players of all time, just because of his ability to do whatever the coaching staff wanted him to do, right? But it's not like he was just this giant threat to run the football every time, right? So now that they have a guy like Rocket Sanders in there, who is a threat to run, I think that's going to open up the playbook a lot. I really do. I'm excited. I actually think that's going to be the number one difference from last year to this year, is just having a freaking running back. It sounds so simple. I can't even believe USC was in that position last year, but just having a loaded running back room now, I think is just so incredibly important in this league.
And it feels like the one thing I look at is, do you learn from the year before, like as a coaching staff, as a program, in the NFL as an organization? Do you take a step? Are you self-aware enough to take a step back and go, okay, we can't do that again? Mm-hmm. And I think they took a step back and said, okay, last year with this whole running back thing, and then look, they tried to get some running backs last year and it just didn't work out of the portal. So then they said, well, we'll just go this route. And I think this year they said, no, we are going to make sure we have legitimate running backs that have track records of success at wherever they were.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go with the premise of, we can make that guy a running back, or that guy from Division II, or a freshman, or no. They're bringing in people that they know have done it before and done it well. So you learn from last year. You learn from what you tried to do last year. You said, you know what? We thought we had good reasoning behind everything, but we learned we can't do that again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and, it's telling when your top running back, and I loved Mario Anderson. I covered him at Newberry. Great kid. Really talented. It didn't look like he should have been on any field but a D1 field, right? When he played at Newberry, he just looked different, right? Like he was super fast and he was patient and he had that running back vision. But when you're a program like South Carolina, you shouldn't have to rely on a guy like that. I don't think. I think you should be able to rely on a guy like Rocket Sanders, right? From year in and year out. Another guy I really like in that running back room is Jordan Howell. I mean, I said it last week too. I watched him play at SC State. Reminds me a lot of Mario Anderson, very patient with the football. A lot of times at SC State, the play kind of broke down. Blocking wasn't great. It's a kind of a mess at the line of scrimmage. And all of a sudden you see this guy sort of bounce out and you're like, wait a second. I thought he got tackled 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he's so fast. I mean, that is another great weapon I think that USC brought in this offseason. And, hopefully they're able to utilize him really well because from what I saw at SC State, I mean, that kid can play too.
And, and all this is, we talk about running backs. You had to upgrade the running back room. But again, if the offensive line doesn't block anybody, none of this matters.
Yeah, right.
And it feels like between the incoming freshmen, the guys you have coming back, the transfer portal additions, I'm hoping that you can put 5 on the field that can hold their own at the line of scrimmage so you can actually run your offense, which I remember we were talking to Dow Loggins at Birdies with Beamer. And I was like, seriously, how much of your offense could you even run last year?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, we were handcuffed. And, there's things we couldn't do because of our issues up front.
Sure.
And so there was parts of, that's what we forget sometimes.
Yeah.
Is, if you don't win up front, there are certain things you can't do. Like Dow was saying, we had to keep tight ends into chip.
Yep.
Running backs had to stay into chip and help in protection. So we were limiting ourselves in our passing game because we couldn't put guys out in routes because they had to stay in block so Spencer Rattler didn't get killed.
Yep.
Or at least decapitated.
Yep.
So, because nobody wants that.
Right. That's not
pick
good.
Up that head.
It's not good TV.
So that's the kind of thing that when you don't, it's simple as this. If you can't win up front, it causes so many other problems.
Oh yeah, 100%. The play breaks down, and it's funny when a couple years ago we were talking to South Carolina State head coaching legend Buddy Pugh, one of my favorite people on earth. Just talking candidly, I think they had lost to UCF. I think it was 2 years ago. Season opener, I think, down there in Orlando, and before that game, he was talking about how UCF beat Florida in the bowl game, right? I think the year before. And we started talking about what's the main difference that you see. And I kind of knew what he was going to say, but I didn't realize he was going to say it like this. He was like, the difference between the SEC and, a program like SC State is, SEC teams have some man-childs up front. Yes. And I'll never forget. I mean, it was the perfect description, some man-childs. And if you don't have some man-childs up front, you're not going to get anywhere, man. And it also wouldn't be a Carolina football season. I mean, I've been here going on since 2014, so this will be I guess the 11th football season for me. I really can't think of a year where there weren't issues or questions on the offensive line. I really can't.
Isn't that interesting?
It's
You've
weird.
Gone this long.
Yeah. I mean, last year maybe it wasn't as much, but it was kind of surprising because the amount of starts that were back, and yeah, it's just it's constantly been an issue. But you bring a guy like Sean Elliott back to Columbia, and you lure him away from Georgia State. I mean, I think that's such an underrated part, man. I really do. A guy who coached offensive line. Obviously he's not working with the offensive line this year, more of just the running backs, the run game. He's kind of working with the O-line, but he's not their position coach, obviously. But a guy who brings so much experience to that position. I mean, I think that's another very underrated part of this year. So hopefully, that unit can kind of gel together a little bit better than what we've seen, in the past couple of years. I mean, Beamer's first year, you weren't here yet.
No,
a couple
I
years
got here
ago,
at the end of the first year.
Yeah, but they go to Georgia, right? And it was just a nightmare. I mean, it was like it was two different teams playing, and Beamer was obviously visibly upset, after that game, because it felt like two very, very different programs, and it started, at the line of scrimmage. So now, hopefully, in year 4 under Beamer, there's a little bit more continuity there.
Yeah, some man-childs.
Man-childs.
I love that.
Yeah, it was. Oh
so
my God,
good.
They got some man-childs. I was like, I almost fell out of the chair.
Well, you stop and you think, well, you know what? He's right.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
No, 100%. I mean, and he was talking about Florida and their offensive line. They got some man-childs up there, and you do. I mean, that's just the name of the game, and consistency too. Can we see a consistent rotation? And it's not bouncing all over the place. I mean, that's another thing that Shane mentioned in his press conference last week. Like, can we just get a consistent rotation in there? So it's not just like, filling holes where we need to, that it's a cohesive unit instead of just a bunch of misfit toys.
And that goes in depth and health. And we'll discuss that next. I'm going to find out what your Pilates game is like. Mike Gillespie hanging out with us. Ed Bird also. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford hanging in along with Mike and Ed till 3 on the game. All right. Halftime show, Terry Ford and Mike Gillespie and Ed Bird, and we're cooking this baby up until 3 on the game. You brought up something interesting, and we're hearing it from a lot of these players. Because, look, Shane Beamer, fans weren't happy with last year. University wasn't happy with last year. Players weren't happy. Head coach sure wasn't happy.
Sure.
And we saw, Mike, changes made in the offseason. Lots of them. And just kind of in a different way, and it might just be 1 year because this thing is always year to year now. Just the way things were, the way the team was built, shuffling in the coaching staff, not a lot of social media hype stuff. It's like everybody, the head coach was annoyed, and we're going back to work, and we're going to fix this thing. And one of the things they looked at was strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And look, there was talk, do you make a change? And Luke Day is like loved, right?
Yeah.
But there was whispers that, well, maybe we've got to do this a different way because of injuries and things of that nature. And look, first of all, football's a collision sport.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, people are trying to inflict pain upon each other at high speed. It's going to be people getting hurt. And all the strength and conditioning guys in the world can't prevent it, right?
Right.
But obviously there were some things they wanted to look at again. And one of the things that came out of this I thought was so interesting is you got a lot of really big dudes doing Pilates now.
Yeah, sure.
You ever done it?
No. I can barely get out of bed in the morning.
Touch your toes? Touch your knees?
No, I can't. I could touch my knees.
Can you touch your knees sitting there? Can you touch your knees?
I can touch the shin.
Look at you. You are like a gymnast. You are a gymnast.
Yeah, no, for sure. I absolutely am a gymnast. The 2028 Olympics. Sign me up. My wife is a former dancer, and she is. She's like a Chinese gymnast. Like she really is. Like she'll just like I'll see her just randomly like do a headstand against the wall, and I'm like, your head is not supposed to be down. So I get crap all the time for just not being flexible at all. But it's so important, right? It prevents all of these soft tissue injuries. And I remember Will Muschamp talking about that. During my days at Florida, they were having all of these soft tissues. I mean, he dealt with a lot of that stuff here too. I mean, Deebo Samuel, like he was just in and out of those soft tissues. And really, there's a lot of research now that shows you have to be flexible, right? It's so incredibly important.
It's funny.
Not for what we do, but
we need to be flexible. we need to have our small core muscles. Yeah. Because of what we do here with all the physicality and the heavy lifting.
There's nothing small about my core muscle, by the way.
I try not to have them. Yeah. I'm just trying to stay away from core muscles. It's funny, though, because, like, again, my girlfriend does yoga because she was a gymnast, skater, or whatever when she was younger, ice skater. And, and now, she's a power lifter now. But, she's big in yoga. And so one day I go with her because I'm just not my bag, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so I go with her, and and the guy, the yoga instructor, and they're all doing their yoga thing, and I'm following what he's doing. And I said this is my first time or whatever, and so I'm maneuvering it, and the guy's not saying anything to me. So I figure I'm doing really well, right? So we go back to her place. We were just dating at the time, and she looks at me, and I looked at her and go, yoga thing's nothing. I feel great.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, get back in that stance again. I go, okay, now move your foot a centimeter to the left. Oh God. Oh my God. Make it stop. Oh, Jesus, make it stop. And it was like just that little movement.
Yep.
Because I wasn't doing anything right.
Yeah.
She goes, you were doing nothing right, by the way. I go, your yoga instructor sucks. He didn't stop and help me at all.
Yeah.
And so the yoga thing, I did that one time, and I was like, man, that was a miserable experience. But I get the value of the flexibility and the stretching. And they say the Pilates, what all these players are talking about, is how it works these little small muscles in your body that like weightlifting never does. And you just feel different. And it hits your core, and it hits like little muscle groups and things, and they all feel different coming into this season because of the Pilates. And they also, I think it was Case and Henry was on with Wes and Chris on the Garnet Trust Hour, and he said they're also doing strength training that is like is applicable to playing football. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you've heard of those workouts that are like, this is strength training that's applicable to just your everyday life.
Yeah.
Everyday type of, because like anything, you can go to the gym and lift like all the time.
Sure.
I think it'll help somebody move.
Yeah.
You're in
Yeah,
a body
very
cast the
different.
next day, right? You're
Yes.
like, my God, I didn't know I had parts of that body that hurt.
You're right.
It's not functional everyday strength that you get from the gym. So they were saying that they're doing that as well. They're doing these strength exercises that can be translated to playing football. So they did make some changes in how they go about their strength and their conditioning. And part of it was the Pilates, which I would love to go see 30 South Carolina football players sitting in a Pilates class.
Yeah, for sure. I remember one of the things, it's funny, like when I was a student, one of the things that Urban Meyer used to do at Florida was I don't know if it would fly now, but he used to make his guys do a lot of this, like it almost seems barbaric, like workouts, like moving tires, moving chains, right? Like, and I have no idea, like, if that would fly now. I don't know if any coach would want to do that. But I remember thinking to myself, like, that's so unique and interesting because it's got to be working different muscle groups, I think that's great. That's awesome for you.
All right, hour one in the books with our buddy Mike Gillespie and Ed Bird. Terry Ford, it's a halftime show. We'll come back football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour. Like always, it's sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We do this sucker up until 3, then the postgame show will take over here on The Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Mike Gillespie, Ed Bird, as we roll up until 3 here on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. You know, Mike, it was really interesting. Our buddies here at Gamecock Central West and Chris put up their training camp confidentials about stuff they're hearing, with what's going on, because you know this being in the media. Mm-hmm. You get quote-unquote open practice, but it's not really open practice.
We used to joke in the TV world that it was the best 20 minutes of stretching video that we're ever going to shoot.
Because there are coaches who do that. Mm-hmm. They'll be like,
not Beamer. But
right.
I
was going to give him credit. They do a little more than that.
Yes, they do.
But I've seen coaches, 20 minutes of jumping jacks. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Right.
But, it's like that college, NFL, you get X amount of time. Mm-hmm. In the NFL, you get a little bit more. But you get X amount of time to be there to see practice. And, of course, they are purposely showing you nothing.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to show you nothing. They don't want to show you nothing.
Right.
Shane does at least. They break out and do some things where you can at least get something out of it, or you try to get something. So I give Shane credit for that. But I've seen coaches, you're touching your toes for 20 minutes.
Yeah, it got bad under Muschamp too, and I know
what a shock.
Was kind of the same. Yeah, I know.
What a surprise.
Everything did. But with Spurrier too. Like Spurrier, 15 years ago? What year are we in? Like 15 years ago. He had open practices, and he had fans could come watch, and then it just became this whatever edge you could get over an opponent, right? Like you were going to make sure that was exploited. And it just, the margins of error are so small in the SEC that you had these coaches just sort of shut it down, and I can't really blame them. It's the injury report news that came out yesterday, right? So the SEC is going to make coaches fill out injury reports, and you've got either questionable or out, which to me almost makes it worse, honestly, Terry. It's now all of a sudden you're going to have all of these coaches putting their guys as questionable instead of out.
Are questionable, right.
Unless the guy has a severed kneecap or something, but it's seriously, we're not really doing it. It's just for the gambling world. But, Nick Saban came out a couple years ago, kind of against it. And he's like, I'm not going to give away the farm here. I'm not giving any information away to our opponents that we don't need to. And so that's why he never did. I know Florida and LSU have been doing it for a little while. They've been pretty good. But even that, there's a lot of gray area there. It's funny, I was on a podcast yesterday, and we were joking about what, Beamer would have said about Juice Wells, now. Is he questionable or is he out? And now apparently he's in street clothes. He's not practicing for Ole Miss. So,
interesting.
I really wanted to tweet today. I know I'm just saying it now on radio, but I really wanted to tweet. That's okay, Ole Miss fans. He'll be back in December. Don't worry. It'll be fine. He'll be back when it matters most.
Real?
Yeah, real. Yeah, exactly.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Look,
I'm still hurt.
Well, with that, I get it. I do. I mean, that whole thing went down badly last year, and the things you heard behind the scenes of, there was, okay, well, you are cleared to play.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you're cleared to play, and then I'm coming back. Didn't say he was coming back. What we said it on the show here is he said he's coming back, but he didn't say he's coming back to South Carolina.
Yes.
But again, a lot of people, you take that as he's coming back to South Carolina. Then when it doesn't go that way, and then he had the goofy thing he said on a podcast or whatever it was. It's sad because the year before he was so instrumental in the success that team had, and in the way, talk about things ending badly.
Yeah.
The Juice Wells thing is the when people scream about NIL and mercenary players and nobody's loyal and all that stuff, which is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
That I don't agree with a lot of all that. But when people are talking about that, they will bring up, look at Juice Wells of South Carolina.
Yeah. There's no loyalty, right? And I would say that is not the majority, right, of, I'll even say talented players. Look, we could talk all day about this. You look at what Isaiah Bond did, right? With Alabama to Texas. All right. Well, clearly money was involved there, right? Obviously, he's now driving a Lambo. Great for him.
I think he had that when he was a teenager.
Probably. Good for him.
He worked a part-time job over at McDonald's.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, he was at Zesto's making ice cream.
And he saved enough money to get a Lambo.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, I've got one. I just never show it to anybody. I park it in the back and I keep it in.
I got one. It's a little Matchbox. It's really cool looking.
Yeah, exactly. It's yellow. I mean, but there are guys like that who exist. Doesn't make them bad people. I would say for the majority of these deals, right? I think I'm gonna side with humanity here and say that there are better apples than worse apples out there in the NIL space. But Juice Wells certainly was not a good apple, right? Like, and he didn't even try really to disguise it, right? Like, he just made his feelings known. And then it's just like the peak trolling that keeps coming out of Ole Miss, right? Like that video the other day,
right,
of Juice, practicing, and they've got Sandstorm playing, and I'm just like, really, like, let it go. It's like it's like when one of your best guy friends can't get over a girl, and you're like, she doesn't want you.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, get over it.
Drop
like,
it.
it doesn't
She's
matter.
moved on.
Right.
You
Yeah,
gotta
exactly.
move on too.
And I'm right, exactly. And it's more for Juice Wells, like, move on. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, you made the decision, stick with it. And for Ole Miss, like, stop. Like,
you got him.
You just look like idiots.
He plays for you.
Right.
Good luck. Congratulations.
100%. Yeah. But I mean, bringing it back to those injury reports and, giving away the farm, right? It's, the same thing with practices now. Like, you just don't, you don't get to see a whole lot, especially after the first couple weeks. I'll say that too. Like, as soon as we get to, the end of August, everything's kind of shut down. Yeah.
And as much as, like, we joke about in the media where, you get to see 15, 20 minutes of not much of anything, I get it too. And here's why the other part of it is called self-preservation.
Yeah.
If you're a head coach and you open up everything for everybody, right, and then you go out and get your tail kicked, what's one thing that's going to get brought up? Why are you showing everybody everything in your practice?
Right.
Well, what are you doing? All these other guys shut everything down, and you're just letting everybody see everything. And whether that's why you lost or not, that's not even the point, right? It's just when you lose, everybody's looking for the reasons. And they're lifting every rock, right?
Yep.
And well, you had your practice open.
No, 100%.
And so that's another thing, too. That's why I don't blame coaches. Like, I used to always joke about Bill Belichick. A lot of the people in the media, Bill Belichick, his press conferences kind of became a joke, too, because he didn't say anything.
Right. Never said a thing.
And I don't blame them. I'm not saying anything either.
Yeah.
Because in the media, we all want... We love the people who talk. Like in New York, they loved Rex Ryan.
Yeah.
Who cares? He's a mediocre coach for the most part. They would defend Rex Ryan to the death so he could keep his job for one reason.
Yep.
Here's a great quote.
Yep.
And he made their jobs easier.
Yep.
The media will always take up for the great quote guy.
Yep.
Because he makes their jobs easier.
Dabo Swinney. Like, when I was in TV, it was... Now, Beamer is much, much better than Will was. But when Will Muschamp was here... It was always just so night and day. Like, you knew you were going to get some gold, and I'm sorry for even saying this on 107.5, but you knew you were going to get a gold soundbite from Dabo Swinney, right? Like, you always knew, right? Like, there was going to, but with Will, it was like, oh my God, like, unless somebody asks him about Thanksgiving or like something, like, we're just not, like, I'd rather... undergo a vasectomy with a fondue fork, than have to sit here and listen, to this.
Who hasn't had that before?
I mean, I don't recommend it. We're still recovering, but it's just like, what am I listening to? Like, this is, garbage. And I'll say all of that. And I say, I actually do like Will as a person. He's one of those guys that doesn't give out any information. He kept it so shut down. Yeah. Dabo is kind of an open book. I mean, it's funny. He'll give you his opinion on everything and anything. So, we always sort of gravitated in the media world to Dabo because it was just, he was funny and likable and really hokey, but fine, whatever. So was Spurrier at times. And
and so the media, the human nature is, we love that guy, gives us great quotes. So we're rooting for him to keep his job forever because it makes our job easier.
Yeah.
And the flip side is the guy that doesn't talk, if he's winning, again, he's great, right? Keeps everything buttoned up.
Right.
But when you're not winning, your leeway is not as much because the media isn't getting what they want. You're making their job more difficult.
Yeah.
So they're quicker to come after you than if you're like a quote machine.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's almost like a how do I describe this? It's like this is great radio. Sorry. it's like reverse, not reverse psychology, but it's counterintuitive. That's what I'm looking for. It's counterintuitive because when things start going wrong, right? Like then they start shutting things down and being a little not anti-media, but it was like just not as easy to work with, I guess. They
close ranks,
right? But then when you start doing that, then like you make people in the media mad, and then they don't have as great of things to say, and it's just sort of like this cyclical negative energy that keeps going round and round.
I've always thought when it comes to that is coaches, players, managers, you never win. You're never going to win the fight with the media.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be here when you're gone.
Right.
The next crew is going to come in. The next crew is going to come in. I've always thought that, however you do it in your personality or comfort level, just deal with them.
Yeah. Because
if you deal with them and you give them enough of what they need, then they're happy and they move on. You don't want. I've always been one of these guys that if I was a head coach, which obviously I don't wear glasses, so I'm not smart enough. But it's just the idea.
I could give you mine.
I could be so much smarter. But it's just the idea that I want to limit problems.
Yeah.
I don't want to create problems because I'm going to have enough of them anyway, right?
Right.
Being antagonistic with the media is just a problem you don't need. Just give them what they want, make them happy, move them along.
Yeah.
So, whatever your personality is, just funnel what they need and they go, and that's it. You're not going to win that battle.
Right.
Even Bill Belichick didn't win that battle because guess who's not the head coach anymore?
Right.
You don't win the battle.
Yeah.
Bill Parcells, you didn't win the battle.
It is still crazy to me that he is not a head coach in the National Football League today. Like arguably, I'm not going to say the great. Yeah, I guess you could say he is the greatest, but I'm not going to go down that road. That we can talk about that another day. But certainly the greatest of my generation. And he is not a head coach in the NFL. Like that is insane to me. But you talk about control, right?
No, well, that's
he
part of
wanted
it.
control from top to bottom.
And that's part. And if he's coming off of a 12-win season, he's a head coach.
Right.
But we go back to the thing again. When you're not successful like you were, all of a sudden people are looking for reasons not to hire you instead of hiring you.
Right.
Unfortunately, but he should be head coaching somewhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so we have the Camp Confidential in the little in this is stuff that Wes and Chris have heard, and they picked up some tidbits of things. We're going to throw some of it's very interesting regarding the offensive line, the wide receivers.
Sure.
So we'll dig up some of that stuff from the Gamecock Central Post from Wes and Chris, the Training Camp Confidential stuff. That's coming up in our next segment. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Michael Espy, Ed Bird. We're running till 3, the halftime show on the game.
Pretty much like pushing each other, obviously, like you said, but also making each other better. Like I said earlier this week, it's a healthy competition, or last week whenever I said that. Just he has college experience, taking that from him. I have knowledge of the system, he's taking that from me. So we just still got to go out there and do it and compete and just lift each other up when stuff goes bad, and then just help each other out.
That's Lenora Sellers talking about the quarterback room with he and Robbie Ashford, and talking about competition and pushing each other, even though we do know the starting quarterback is Lenora Sellers.
Yeah.
Shane Beamer always says there's competition at every position. So if you're Shane, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
But we all know what's up.
Mm-hmm.
We get it. We know. Like you said, the NIL deal tells you everything.
Follow the money and you get the truth. The NIL deal speaks volumes about who your starting quarterback is going to be.
Typically, a starting quarterback, I'm saying this in general, is not going to have an NIL deal that says, ooh, free waffle fries at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
It's not really happening that way.
I would totally take that NIL deal, by the way.
Let me tell you what, you give me free Chick-fil-A?
Oh, my God.
I'm in.
That's, I developed a problem during COVID. Like, it was really bad. It was so bad.
Were you addicted to Chick-fil-A?
Oh, I mean, and the funny thing is, like, we live in Irmo, and we've got a Chick-fil-A that's like less than a mile from our house, and
dangerous.
I would still get it delivered every time. I was just peak lazy absurdity.
How many days in a row did you wear the same sweats during COVID?
Actually, we were going in every day. They made us go in for TV every single day, so I still had to put on the shorts and the suit up top.
Yeah, that was
the business mullet is what I used to call it. Yeah.
You know what I love about that? Or whenever I talked to a TV person that would do that, remember my senior pictures in high school. I mean, again, it's August, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's 150 degrees, and they would give you this tux, this half tux.
Yes.
And you put the half tux on. You had shorts on and flip flops. And you had this half tux. You're getting pictures, and you look like a goober.
Absolutely.
That always takes me back to think when you guys talk about your business mullet.
Oh yeah. No, I used to. It's funny, like that. They never care. You know, like why would they care? You know, I mean, it was like I wasn't on that much. I mean, it was like 3 minutes for each show, but it wasn't like our main anchors who were like a couple hours every day. So yeah, we'd do shorts and sandals, and we'd have the whole suit up top, and like nice suits too. Like not like that suit does not belong with those shorts and sandals. Like clearly there's a mismatch.
Did you ever for fun just go out like that to a restaurant?
There were times when I met my wife out, and I would have like a nice collared shirt on, and I would forget. And I would still have like the shorts and sandals. And she'd be like, "You can't eat with me.
It's like you have to sit at a table by yourself."
Yeah, you need to find a new wife somewhere in Austin, Texas, or something, like not here.
Halftime show. Terry Ford, Mike Gillespie, Ed Bird. Football. 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. All right, we got to get to there's breaking news about Jim Harbaugh in the NCAA. We're going to get to in a second. Real quick, we got to get a sounder. The Camp Confidential thing, I do want to hit one point, and we were talking about this a little bit. Wes and Chris reporting there's been a lot of positivity about Torricelli Simpkins, who transferred in, and transferring up a level. And we talked about that before.
Sure.
Simpkins, there's thoughts that he can compete for both the starting right guard spot, maybe back up to Vershawn Lee if Lee's the center. Mm-hmm. But Simpkins is competing for a starting guard slot. Kamar Bell, another transfer portal guy, has been getting a good amount of first-team reps at competing for the left guard spot. So we'll see. Could Bell and Simpkins be your starting guards with Lee at center? There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people in that offensive line room, but that's just some of the stuff that they've been hearing. Also, Josiah Thompson, the five-star freshman.
Sure.
He's been getting his share of first-string reps.
Nice.
Now, again, in a perfect world, you don't want to be starting a freshman at left tackle in the SEC.
Right.
But if he earns it, and he's far and away the guy, then you live with what will be the growing pains, knowing how good he can be once the growing pains are over.
Yeah, so. And I mean, again, if he's your best option, at tackle, then that's what you got to go with.
Right.
And I mean, he was a 5-star offensive lineman. I mean, the thing that I'm worried about, honestly, man, it might not necessarily be the starters; it's just the depth again, right? Like
we saw what happened last year when there were injuries.
And on the defensive side, we know there's a lot of depth on the defensive line, linebackers, a lot of depth there. Corner maybe not so much, but certainly safety. That offensive line. I mean, there's just not I don't know. I don't want to go out there and just say there's not a lot of depth. There's just not a lot of proven bodies yet. I think that's kind of and from what we saw in the spring game too, it wasn't like it was phenomenal play.
And the idea is, you got a lot of guys who have, whether it's other schools in the transfer portal or even though you have freshmen, whether they're 5-star, 4-star, whatever, a lot of these guys have not played in the SEC.
Right.
So that's where you hope that they can translate. Breaking news. Oh, that was really weak. You got to up your sounder game.
I'm not sure.
I don't know what that was, but the face was classic. That was fantastic.
What do you want? What was it? Beep, 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 beep. Is that better? Just scream it.
We got breaking news right now from our man in Ann Arbor, Mike Gillespie. Let's go to Ann Arbor.
All right. Here in Ann Arbor. Wait, I just had it. Well, they're going to give Jim Harbaugh a 4-year show cause for recruiting violations during COVID. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with the Connor Stallions thing.
Right.
This is a whole new bag of worms. But yeah, NCAA announcing a 4-year show cause for former Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh on Wednesday for impermissible contact with recruits and players while access was restricted during the COVID-19 pandemic.
That's the old school.
Oh, yeah. There we go. The NCAA said that Harbaugh, who left his alma mater to coach the Los Angeles Chargers last season after last season's national championship, engaged in unethical conduct, failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance, and violated head coach responsibility obligations.
That's just because once you heard the sounder.
Yes, that's what I immediately go to. Yeah. It's just like some old reporter with like a cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
Oh, yeah, coffee.
Yeah,
Smokes.
yeah, coffee. Yeah, exactly. What do you say, Steve? Yeah.
So basically, this 4-year show cause is for. Now look.
Yes.
It was. Remember, it was the hamburger incident and all that ridiculousness.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's insane.
But really, the part of it that has hurt him, and I haven't dug in and read this yet because I have a man on the street in Ann Arbor. Why the hell do I need to read it?
That's right.
But it's just the idea that he was not cooperating.
Right.
And that's the thing with Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great coach. I would hire him in a minute.
Sure.
If I'm a fan, I want him to coach my team. He is one of the best coaches in America. Forget college, NFL, because he's coached in the NFL to a Super Bowl with the 49ers. He's won a national championship.
Yep.
He won at the University of San Diego.
Yes.
I mean, most people couldn't tell you where the University of San Diego was, and you're saying, no, it's in San Diego. She's like, so I still got nothing for you.
Yeah.
So the point is, he's a great coach, but he's a greater kook.
Yeah.
I mean, he is. I mean, look, and go back to what we were talking about earlier. Why give yourself unnecessary junk you don't need? All you've got to do in however you want to cooperate, right? Just tell them something. How many coaches skate free who have done worse stuff than buy a dude a cheeseburger because they just sat down and just, gave them something and moved on?
A lot of this is just the ridiculousness of the NCAA, right? Like some of those rules are completely
asinine.
It's just insane. Like buying a guy cheeseburger and fries should not be an NCAA violation
ever
anywhere, right? Like that's just stupid. However, when it comes to stuff like this, not handing over your personal cell phone, by the way, this was his personal cell phone, which there's a difference there.
Sure.
He didn't hand over his personal cell phone, and text messages on there that apparently, with I guess there were more than 50 text messages that were in question. So the NCAA tagged him with not being cooperative, and of course, like I would too.
Yeah.
Like if you're not willing to come forward with some of the evidence, then like what, it just looks like you're guilty.
Right.
It looks
that's
like
where
you're
it goes.
guilty.
And it's almost like, I almost feel like, and again, I don't know the NCAA rule book well enough because I don't care to. And I've got Netflix. Why would I want to do that to myself?
This is on page 197,
exactly.
by the way.
I would almost think like if I would have to go to my compliance people to make sure I could do this and it wouldn't be awful.
Yeah.
I would almost go, I'll cooperate with you. Here you go. And now I'm going to go to the media and blast you for the stupidity that all this is because I bought a kid a cheeseburger or a hamburger or whatever.
Right.
I'm now going to let you have it.
Yep.
I am going to scorch earth on you now.
Yep.
I'll give you what you want. but now I'm going to make you look as stupid as you are, and I'm going to be loud.
Yeah, and at this point with Jim Harbaugh, it is just a pattern, right? Like at some point, if you just keep doing things that are violations according to the governing body of your sport, you're going to have to take the fall at some point. And I mean, honestly, man, I think that's why he left Michigan. He knew this was coming.
He knew it was coming.
You know, it's all going to come down. And you and I had an interesting conversation off the air about, when is it ever a good ending, right?
Well, let's talk about that coming back. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Mike Gillespie, Ed Bird on the game. All right, we're talking about football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Mike Gillespie, Ed Bird is here as we roll on the game. We will get back, obviously, going to hit some more of this training camp stuff. It's interesting. They were talking about wide receiver room, Mike Gillespie. And I do want to get to this real quick. And then underachieving programs. Tyler and I were going over this list yesterday. There was two we didn't get to that I want to get to because one is a no-brainer if you're over the age of 35.
Sure.
And the other, you go, wow, I didn't realize that. So we're going to get to that. But there are two that are looked at as underachieving in this article on ESPN.com. All right, a little bit more on the Camp Confidential from Wes and Chris. They're talking about, and we'll do one quick running back thing with Rocket Sanders. Sanders is practicing full go, and that's good. It's good to see Rocket Sanders full go in practice.
Yeah, some of the videos I saw from some of the media guys in town, the swing pass, into the flat, I guess, when they're practicing there. I mean, when he catches the ball, he's just got a different speed, and some of those guys, you around this sport long enough to know, okay, that guy's got some speed.
It doesn't take a genius to go, wow, that's different.
Yeah,
that's different.
And he does. He looks a little bit different. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of speed. Like I said, between Lenore Sellers and Rocket Sanders, a lot of speed there. And I can't say enough about Jordan Howe. I know I'm a freaking broken record at this point, but he's very good too.
We averaged like 7 or 8 yards a carry last year.
Yeah,
he had some big runs. I mean, Again, it was on a different level, but he put up some numbers.
Yep.
All right. Also here, Wes and Chris talking about hearing that Mazeo Bennett continues to impress as a freshman. Well, the spring game, he made a couple of catches. And so as much as you can take from any of that stuff, but he might, again, we don't know anything about what's going to shake out a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So could Mazeo Bennett end up being a guy that gets some reps and run? Sure. Could he be a guy that sits all year and then kind of learns and doesn't do a whole lot? Sure. And the one I think is interesting is Vandravius Jacobs, the kid from Florida State who redshirted last year. He has been getting some buzz around the folks that see practice. And they like to see, athletically, he's got a ton of it. And it's just, it's the wide receiver part. But a lot of people like what they're seeing so far. And the freshman tight end, Michael Smith, has turned some eyes as well at camp on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, the freshman, Jalewis Solomon, has been playing some nickel. They like his skill set for the position. We'll see if that equals more playing time, because one of the problems last year was covering slot receivers. Again, you're asking guys like Kilgore and Smith and Emenwari to go and chase SEC-level slot receivers, which they had difficulty. If you can find a guy, whether it's Solomon, or Vakari Swain, whoever, guys that are better at covering receivers in general, to maybe have them in obvious passing situations be part of that package, that can only be a positive. So Solomon's showing some stuff so far in summer camp as a freshman.
That's awesome. No, that's good stuff. I'm Vandravius Jacobs. I think that's really interesting to me because, again, everyone knows that one of the biggest storylines obviously is finding a group of receivers that are consistent, right? And got a guy who, played at Florida State. Obviously, he's a redshirt freshman, but, he was good enough to play at FSU. He's not super big. He's only 6 foot, a little under 200, I think. So he's not, he's not Alshon Jeffrey, but, I'm sure he's got a lot of speed, and I haven't seen him in person, but, that's definitely good news for USC because, they need a guy like that with a lot of speed.
The wide receiver room is going to be so interesting because you got a guy like Jared Brown from Coastal, who, who's a yak yard maniac.
Yeah.
And his average route, though, was like a yard. They just ran, just go, we're going to snap the ball. Just take a step back, we're going to throw it to you. Somebody's going to block and just take off and make something happen. We're going to do bubble screens, whatever the case. And then Larvadane coming in is a guy that about the same size but played a lot wide as well as slotted, kind of at 50-50. Then you throw in the kid Campbell, who's coming in from Nevada, who is 6'4", and maybe he's a jump ball guy. And then you got Jacobs. Maybe he can bring some things to you as well. You got so many maybes, right, Mike?
Yeah.
And we'll see how the maybes shake out. And then we can get back to Nick Harbor, who last time we checked has world-class speed. He's just got to learn how to play wide receiver.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Brown is an interesting one to me too. Like you said, I mean, it's a guy that comes in with a lot of experience. At Coastal, that is a good football program. It's not like he transferred, no offense, from like Furman or Wofford, like a smaller football school. I mean, this is a kid who did a lot of good things at Coastal. Looking at it right now, I mean, 27 contests, 3 seasons, 20 starts, 1534 yards with 11 touchdowns as a shot. I mean, those are pretty impressive numbers. And was one of Grayson McCall's go-to wide receivers. So yeah, I mean, that might be fun to watch too, for sure. Good transfers. Really good transfers.
And a lot of potential there, and hopefully it turns into production.
Yeah.
All right, underachieving teams in college football. Really cool ESPN post. We went through most of it yesterday, but 2 I missed I want to circle back to. 1, and this one again, if you're over the age of 30 or 35, you're going to go, duh, Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Sure.
What they were, think about this, when you see it in front of you, from 1963 to 2001, almost 28 years, 5 national titles, 22 conference titles, 470 wins. That's 14 more wins than any other program in that span. And they bring it into context. It's the 37th most populous state in the country.
Wow.
Have you ever driven through Nebraska, Mike?
Yes, I have.
You see tumbleweed and cattle.
Yes, my first job was in Iowa.
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
Yes, a lot of soy, and that's about it. I lived right next to the John Deere Tractor Museum.
Well, that's pretty impressive
that was
stuff.
Cool for a day, and then
a whole day.
A whole day. Yeah, let me tell you. Yes. So no, there's not a whole lot out there. I mean, what Tom Osborne did at Nebraska is just insane. I mean, 3 national titles. I mean, he killed Steve Spurrier and the Gators in 1995, and a lot of people, thought that team was going to go on to win the national title. And obviously Florida goes on to win the title the next year, but then Tom Osborne does it the very next year in 1997. So really, really interesting. Nebraska is just one that's they've fallen off a lot, and they hope obviously Matt Rule is the guy, to take them to the next level, but. I mean, who knows? I mean, Matt Rule was such a rah-rah guy, right? Like, when he comes into the room, you can't help but listen to him. But does that make him a great coach? I mean, he did great things at Temple and Baylor, right? But, at the end of the day, or his best days behind him, I mean, sometimes the shelf life with a coach, right, is not that much.
It's going to be interesting because the shine really came off of him when he went to the NFL. And maybe he's just perfect for college and he's not an NFL guy.
There are a lot of guys like that,
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Here's a stat. Nebraska has not been to a bowl game since 2016.
Wow.
Run that by you.
Yeah.
I mean, again, a lot of it goes back to bad coaching hires. And that's where you're at.
Well, and, bad coaching hires and then the fan base not giving it enough time.
Oh, sure.
Right? Like, that's another thing that we could talk about all day. But, at some point, you don't want to become Tennessee or what Florida's becoming,
Right. Absolutely. And the thing about with Nebraska, and one of some unnamed Nebraska official says this, that we have to reset our expectation. Maybe we can't be what we used to be, but if we can be, an 8-win team,
Kentucky.
perennially, go to bowl games, maybe compete for a college football playoff spot every now and then. But you can't expect to be what you were for that 30-year period because that's insane.
Yeah, but try telling.
I know you can't
try telling fans that were there during that
right. You can't tell that
run in
dude
the 90s.
That grew up on it and lives in North Platte, Nebraska, that those days will never come back.
Yeah.
Because I've always said, if you've done it once, the mindset is we can do it again.
Yes.
We just got to get the right guy in the head coaching seat.
Right.
So we'll see if Matt Rule's that dude. There's one more I want to get to in the next segment, the last one of this, and it's an SEC squad. And we'll also get our Firehouse subtext, CR 803-404-6100. It's a halftime show. Michael Leslie's here, Terry Ford, Ed Bird. We run till 3 on the game. Time to check our Firehouse Subtext the Hour. I'll get 2 since I didn't do the Firehouse Subtext the Hour last hour, Mike Gillespie. All right, Tim in Charlotte says, as a Panthers fan, I couldn't be more happy we didn't get Belichick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's funny, like, both things can be true at the same time. He can be the greatest head coach of my generation, and you can also not want anything to do with him because he's so darn controlling over everything.
I think, too, and look, I get what Tim's saying because, right, you saw after Brady left, it wasn't the same.
Right.
They made it to the playoffs once and got run right out.
Sure. Brady won a title down in Tampa.
Which made it all even worse, right?
Right.
So the perception, and I don't agree with this perception, but the perception is it was Brady. Brady made all this better by being Brady.
Yeah.
Remember, a lot of people thought that it was all Belichick, and basically Brady was being made look like this guy that he is because of Belichick's genius, right? Well, then the script flipped when Brady went to Tampa. They won a Super Bowl, and Belichick only went to one playoff
100%.
game after Brady left. I always said they needed each other.
I think so.
It just needed each other to make it work.
I think so.
And what happened with Belichick these last few years, I get where, like, a Carolina Panther fan would be like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Now, again, if Belichick's coming off a playoff trip, can't come to terms with New England, but he's still the person we thought he was before, then you in Carolina, you're like, oh, God, yes, please, bring us this guy.
100%.
So I get where Tim's going because it didn't end well. And we're always prisoners of the moment, right?
Right. Well, and I mean, Bill Belichick is also 72 years old.
And that's another problem. He's a short timer.
I mean, now, again, not getting political here, but there has been a lot of ageism, right? Over the last couple of years in politics. And I think you do get to a certain point where it's maybe it's time to, let somebody else sort of take over. And you get to a point, too, as a fan where you're like, how much more does this coach have to give us? Can this coach sort of reinvigorate a different franchise at 71, 72 years old? Now, I am 35. I am not 72. Somebody who is 72 can chime in and tell me I'm wrong. Tell me to go kick rocks, right? Because and that's fine. That's totally fine. But from a fan basis perspective, I can understand that too. Like, okay, you're in your 70s now. Do you have the strength, the stamina to come down to Charlotte and make it work now with a brand new franchise for you? Brand new franchise.
And do you have the same interest?
But yeah, I mean, exactly.
Are you going to be the same crazy wacko that sleeps in your office and showers twice a month?
Yeah.
Or are you going to, because that's the guy that became, to me, the greatest head coach in the history of the NFL. Do you still have that interest to be that guy?
Right.
Do you now want to show the whole world and that Mike Gillespie ageism guy that at 72, I'm still the guy I was at 62?
Well,
that's another question, to be fair.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable because your bank account looks pretty good? You got a bunch of rings on your fingers.
Yep. You're dating a 24-year-old, allegedly.
So creepy.
Yeah,
but so I guess that's the other question. I still think, here's my thing with Belichick really quick, and then we'll move to the last underrated one. I just, you've got to evolve. And I felt like where Bill Belichick screwed up is, remember, every Patriot player was always disposable for the organization, the philosophy, and the process.
Yeah.
Well, that might have been true except one guy.
Yeah.
And that was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And I think when you saw Bill, you've got to have a different level when you're talking about the quarterback position than any other position on the football field. You have to value it more because it's so valuable in the league. I think that's where Bill screwed up.
Yeah. And
I
remember,
really do.
Robert Kraft let them do their thing, and David Tepper, I don't think, would let a lot of that control go.
By the way, could you see Tepper trying to meddle with Belichick?
No.
That would not end well for Tepper. All right, the last underachieving program on this list, Arkansas Razorbacks. And you don't think, you go, what?
Yeah.
I mean, they were good with Bobby Petrino. Again, the worst thing that happened to Arkansas football was the volleyball player.
Yep.
Because Petrino had it going at Arkansas. And they were really good. And they were really good under Frank Broyles. They have had pockets of being an excellent program. Under Frank Broyles, I guess in the 70s, they were fighting with Texas for Southwest Conference championships, national championships. I mean, they were good with Houston Nutt for a while.
Yeah, they were.
But here lately, since 2012, they are 60-87.
Wow. Whoa. I mean, I shouldn't be that shocked. I mean,
Yeah.
I cover the sport, but I mean that's
When you hear the number,
that's pretty awful.
it is awful.
Yeah, I mean, look, Arkansas is an interesting case because, on its surface, you think, oh, Arkansas, like, they don't have it's just not like a rabid fan base, and it's not some place that people really want to go to, but they've got so much money. I mean, that's why John Calipari left the greatest job in college basketball to go to Arkansas, right? There's NIL money there.
Yeah.
They just came out with Tyson Foods, by the way. The owner of Tyson is an Arkansas grad.
Walmart's an Arkansas
Walmart as
family,
well.
too.
Yeah. And, Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones.
Tyson came out with these new, I guess they're hog nuggets. They're like chicken nuggets, but they're in the shape of hogs. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, that's why John Calipari left.
We're going to leave on hog nuggets. We'll get back in here. What's trending at 2 coming up on the game? What's trending at 2 here on the Halftime Show? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions. Mike Gillespie hanging in for Tyler. Ed Bird's here, popping the buttons as we run this baby up until 3 o'clock. We're going to get some more South Carolina Gamecock player sound. Interesting stuff. We're going to hit, let's see. We have not hit any Rocket Sanders yet, Mike Gillespie. So let's get to some Rocket Sanders here in a couple minutes. It's kind of funny. A buddy of mine was texting me about what we're talking about with Nebraska. And yes, I know it's kind of stunning. I have a buddy. I actually do. I don't have the fake picture like I have a buddy that I put up in my, like you're the guy who goes goes to like Michael's or whatever, and he finds like a frame with like a hot girl in the frame, and he brings it and puts it up on his like his mantle.
Right.
That's my girl.
Yeah.
That's my baby.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like you've got like your head photoshopped next to somebody like at a football game or something.
Like you got friends.
Yeah.
My buddy texts. He goes, you forgot the one thing. And I did forget this. We were talking about Nebraska. What has changed in the world, too, is nobody wants to freeze their tail off in Lincoln, Nebraska playing football.
Good point.
Because they used to get all their skill position guys from California and Florida.
Sure.
Now the California, Florida guys want to play in the SEC. Mm-hmm. They don't want to go to Lincoln, Nebraska and play football.
Yeah, but
I think that's a thing.
I do, too.
To a point,
but
I do.
Ohio State's still good. Michigan's still good.
But Columbus, Ohio ain't Nebraska.
But that's it, right? I think that's more... That's more of what it is. It's Nebraska's in the middle of nowhere.
Freddie, the whole sentence ends in the word Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Nothing. You sit there because Lincoln's a cool college town, but you know what state it's in?
Never been.
It's in Nebraska.
Yes.
That's the problem. Again, Omaha, underrated town. Problem is, what state's it in?
Yeah.
Nebraska.
Right.
And if I'm a kid and I am a high profile running back in the state of Florida, I don't want to go to Nebraska and play football.
No.
If I got other offers in other places, there's no way I want to go to Nebraska.
The only way is if you go to a place like Florida or Florida State and you don't get the starting running back job. And then you start opening it up and say, okay, and then, transfer portal and whatnot. But even so, like, I think now you just go to a place like Ole Miss.
Right.
Or, like Texas.
And that's the point. It's just the world has changed to where the epicenter is different.
Yeah.
And you're not going to go to Lincoln, Nebraska like maybe you did 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. Because what else is really cool is winning. And that's all they were doing was winning. So, okay, I'll go freeze my tail off in Lincoln, Nebraska, but I got a chance to win a national championship, and the NFL is going to see me, and maybe I can, be a high pick in the draft.
It's honestly crazy, Terry. The sports change so quickly too, right? Like you talk about Nebraska being great in the 90s. Like none of the recruits were alive then. Right. Like somebody brought this up with me down at Florida. They're like, one of the main things that we kind of had to get over was these recruits weren't alive in 2006, or maybe they were just born. Mm-hmm. They didn't see Tebow. Right? They see Tebow as this like standard definition, 4x3 quarterback, right? Like it looks old now. It does. And like, me, I remember that because I was in college, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was one of the greatest experiences of my lifetime was being able to see that run in football and basketball. But that's a long time ago. These recruits, they want to hear the names, right? They want to hear the recent names that have come out of that program, the recent championships. And, even somewhat here, 2010, it's a long time ago, 14 years ago. Last division title, that's a long time ago. Jadeveon Clowney is, not what he used to be. I mean,
he's in his 30s. Right?
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. And we do that, though, as we get older. We suspend time to when we were growing up, like everybody knows that stuff, like we do. And you're right. Like, again, my kid's 17. He wouldn't know Tim Tebow if Tim Tebow walked up to him and gave him an autograph and said, I'm Tim Tebow.
Yes.
That's great. Who are you?
Yep.
And it's just that's the way it is now. And when you're recruiting these kids, anything you did before their lifetime
doesn't matter.
Most of them don't know, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're recruiting now, and your legacy and lineage. And we went over all these programs that underachieve. And these recruits don't know.
Right.
They got no clue. They have no idea they used to be really good.
Right.
They're like, what do you now?
Yeah.
So to your point, absolutely.
And that's it. I mean, it is recent success. And, look, my alma mater has battled it for a while. They've gone through head coach after head coach. It's been a long time since they were very good. Now, they've had success. They've won don't know, like in the last 10 years, 4 SEC titles?
Right.
Albeit by default. Like that was before Kirby got going. Not really. Mullen won one, and that was lucky in my opinion. But they've had some success, but my point is you can't rely on your incredible history, right? Like you've got it's all about the now. It's all about the new shiny toy, right? Like you got to get that football facility up and running. If you don't have one, then you're behind. It's like some of these programs that drag their feet with the indoor facility, right? Like I think Alabama may have had it maybe before anybody else. I don't know, but maybe in the SEC, and then all of a sudden everybody had to have an indoor facility because it was the new shiny thing, right? And now it's the football facility and that's super cool. But even that's sort of like now becoming, okay, everybody has one. So like, what's the next thing? Like, are we talking about, domes being put on, these football stadiums? Like, is that the next thing? Probably not. Obviously, that's too much money. But you know what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be this next thing that comes along. And if, you're not constantly adapting, if you're just looking at your past, like, you're not going to have any success in your program.
All right, let's hear a little Rocket Sanders, Ed Bird. We're going to pop a little Rocket Sanders here, talking to the media yesterday. The first thing about Rocket Sanders, how you feeling, obviously, going through the shoulder surgery and now practicing full tilt. Let's get to cut 13, Ed Bird, about Rocket Sanders in the summer rehab and getting himself ready to play. Because remember, he didn't play in the spring. He's been trying to get himself back together. Let's pop cut 13, Ed. Summer rehab, Rocket Sanders.
I wouldn't say it was too much on my shoulder. It was, of course, it was my shoulder. But, when it came down to me and with Chip, he showed me the way to where take preparation, and just, take one day at a time. Because when I first got in here and I got in with Chip, it was just like I was just ready to go, and just taking everything fast. And I feel like that was, with being with Chip, it was like a lot of patience stuff, and just not just working on my shoulder, but working on my mobility of everything as like my hips, my knees and everything. And I feel like that was the main thing. It wasn't not just the shoulder,
So the shoulder thing, we were talking about this the other day. I'll get your thoughts. Last time I checked, running backs get hit a lot.
Yeah.
They don't miss too many hits.
Yeah.
And, you're going to the line of scrimmage, and a lot of times you're leading with your shoulders. So a shoulder injury, rehabbing a shoulder injury and some surgery and stuff like that, you hope this doesn't become a lingering thing. All you can do is say you're 100%, you're ready to go. Okay, let's go play football.
Yeah. And, remember, this happened at the very end of that 2023 season. So, there hasn't been that much time in between. He hasn't played a game since then. That's really important to remember. He has not played a game since he tore his labrum. Wasn't it a torn labrum, right?
I believe
that just sounds painful.
Yeah.
I don't even know where that is. I mean, it's in the shoulder.
Anything that starts with the word tear.
Yeah.
Tearing anything in your body is never good.
Yeah, like a groin. I
used to love Dan Patrick. Remember that? It's a minor groin. It's a minor groin tear.
Yeah.
Because it's not your groin.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with it.
That's right.
I always, oh my God, my buddies and I still make fun of Will Muschamp to this day because he used to say, instead of like being specific with the injuries, it's like, he's got a groin, he's got an ankle. I'm like, yeah, we all have ankles and groins.
We got two of them. Thanks.
Yeah, like what? But yeah, I mean, it's important to remember he hasn't suited up in a game since then. But I mean, that 2022 campaign with Arkansas, was incredible. 1,443 yards, 10 touchdowns. 271 yards, 28 receptions, 2 touchdowns in the passing game.
Oh, he tore up South Carolina in Fayetteville.
Yes.
He was good.
Yeah. So, he's still a stud, but yeah, you always wonder, right? Like these guys coming back from injury, are they more timid too? Are they willing to? I'm sure he is. I'm not trying to speak for him, but I think there's a huge psychological part in play too.
I think any of these injuries, you talk to anybody, well, just think of human nature when you get hurt. Us regular schmoes, you're a little timid on whatever the injury is. Whether you blow out an ankle walking off a curb and your ankle's as big as your head, and you're timid on it. And even when you come back from it, and you're still kind of a little, watching where you're walking.
Yeah.
So think about playing athletics at a high level, and you've had shoulder surgery. And now you're going to run into a hole, and you see a linebacker who's standing there waiting to come at you while you're going at him, and you got to lead, and you lead with your shoulder, and you know, are you gonna come out the other side okay? I think there's a human nature, psychological aspect to all these, you know, like rehabs from injuries.
Yeah, and that's why I think, you know, you have to give credit where credit's due with this coaching staff being able to get a really solid running back room together. There's a lot of depth there. I think you have options, you know, so if Rocket doesn't feel 100% at times, right? I think there are other guys who can take over.
Plus, to your point, maybe you have them on a pitch count early in the year.
Yeah.
You get X amount of carries a game because we've got some depth, and we don't want to. We want to kind of move them along slowly.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to run him a full 60 minutes against Old Dominion. Oh, I hope not.
Yes, let's hope not.
Yeah, but you know, and obviously the Kentucky game is a little different, but you know, you do get, I don't want to say like a week 1 bye, because it certainly is not that, but you get a little leeway there to start. You get a little runway to start. And, you know, I think that serves very, very well for a guy like Rocket who's gets that extra week, you know, get back into the game a little bit, you know, but like you said, you're on a pitch count, you know, then hand the ball off to some other guys.
Well, let's get cut 14 real quick, Edbert. The running game we're all hoping is going to improve a lot from the last couple of years. Feel like this team is built to run the football if the offensive line can hold their own. So cut 14, Ed, how will the run game improve? Here's Rocket Sanders.
It's crazy because I feel like it's just a different feeling. It's a different feeling, man. And I can't explain it because it's like, I feel like it started off with, you know, me not being there 24/7 in the spring and being here fall, and just the time that we had like together as in just family bonding. I feel like that helped us a lot, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's going to be a great year, not just for me, but for everybody in the running back room and on the line. And I feel like just it start with the O-line, you know what I mean? It start with the O-line, and I feel like having self-confidence in they self and they doing the right thing is an effect on us, and we are going to affect everything we do is going to affect on them. So I feel like that's just trusting them, and they trusting us. We're going to have a bright future on that.
Well, it's very interesting how much you talked about the offensive line. Because, again, we've been sitting here talking about the offensive line. So everyone knows that this whole thing's going to start up front.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and, you know, I've gotten to the point in my career now where, like, you can sort of dissect easily what people are saying. And if you really listen to Rocket, I think what he's kind of saying was it didn't go very well at Arkansas, obviously injury-wise, but then maybe the way they handled it. He mentioned family a lot, right? Like at USC, he feels like, you know, he's got a family here. A direct quote that I was looking at, you know, he says, at Arkansas with my knee injury during the season, it was awful for me. You know, I'm not used to watching and observing, but when I came here, so that pretty much says all you need to say, you know, like it's night and day. He feels a lot better here. He feels like it's, you know, obviously a family. And so you talked about that psychological part. Maybe it's not as much of a factor as we think, or maybe, you know, it's gotten a whole lot better with him being in Columbia rather than staying in Fayetteville, where, you know, he's got some of those bad memories.
Well, it's interesting because when you're watching like that year when Arkansas won 9 games with Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Fire up that damn jukebox. Everything looks cool, and everybody's hugging each other, and you're thinking they've got a good player-friendly culture. But then when you hear Rocket Sanders, and sometimes, Mike, you know as good as I do, everybody loves everybody when things are going well.
Yes.
How do you react to things when the crap's hitting the fan?
Yep.
And maybe they haven't reacted very well since things turned sideways on them in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, how many SEC games did Arkansas win last year? 1?
Yeah.
Was it 1 against Florida?
It was. I think
it may have been, and I believe that was at the very end of the season.
And 2 at tops. They struggled. They absolutely did. All right, we'll come back in here. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Jerry Ford, Michael Gillespie. We'll talk some Olympics. We'll get that next here on The Game. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Terry Ford, buddy Mike Gillespie in for Tyler. We're going to get to some Olympic stuff here in a second. First, real fast, we've been playing some Rocket Sanders cuts. And one more, Ed, we're going to play from Rocket. And let's get to cut 10, the expectations when he got to Arkansas, because there's expectations. If Rocket Sanders is healthy, the expectation is he'll be the guy he was 2 years ago, right? That's what everybody thinks. Yeah. If he's healthy and the offensive line can be solid, Rocket Sanders can be one of the best backs in the league.
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
So here's Rocket Sanders talking about expectations. He's used to it because he had them when he got to Arkansas, or the expectations he did have at Arkansas. So let's hear Rocket Sanders discuss that.
Nah, what was so crazy was, Coach Stepp, when I first got to Arkansas, Coach Stepp left, and I got the text. Well, I actually got the call from him and saying that he had family down here. So I was like confused with that, because right when I got on campus, we was ready to see him, because he was one of the guys that I was talking to heavy. So when that happened, I was like, oh man. And then I started thinking about running back, because I came in as an athlete, and a lot of schools recruited me as an athlete. So whenever I actually got on campus, got on our first practice, and we was doing drills and individual and stuff, and I was like, hey, Coach Pitt, what position you want me at for today? He was like, running back, you can try that out. And then they watched my Indy, and then after that, it was sky was the limit. But one thing I learned, when I first got in there, going to high school, I didn't take as much hits, because I was playing more receiver than I was playing running back. So it was like a lot of hitting as a running back. Had to change a lot of things, and that happened actually with the coaches I had. With the changing with pad level and just being patient, because I was a go guy. When I got the ball, just go. And my second year watching my freshman film, I feel like the patience was the key as being a running back and pad level and all the little things. And that's what I was patient with that. And my running back, Jimmy Smith, had helped me with that.
So basically talking about when he got to Arkansas, he's an athlete, evolved into a running back. Yeah. And it's interesting because we always talk about running backs with all these other things, but you talk to a lot of people about the position. Patience, vision are so important. Yeah. Yeah, be patient. Sometimes wait for the hole to open and develop, and then it's the vision. You got to be able to peripheral vision of seeing what's going on around you on the offensive line to be able to, okay, let's say you're supposed to run this play between the center and the guard, but you see the vision of, okay, the hole open to the left, so now you can pop and things of that nature. And he's just talking about the patience of letting plays develop.
Yeah, and I mean, just the ability to be able to take consistent hits too. Yeah, I mean, I think that's so important in the SEC. Just a guy who's, look, I mean, coming off a torn labrum, right? Like, I mean, these things happen. But a guy who's willing to, sacrifice his body and, put it all on the line. I mean, that makes a really good running back. That's so interesting to me that he used to play receiver too. And but I mean, so incredibly quick. That should just tell Carolina fans. I mean, I know they've seen Rocket Sanders play, but it for those of you who haven't, it should tell you how fast he is on the field when he gets the ball in his hands. I mean, he's a lot of fun. A lot of fun to watch.
We're hoping he'll be a lot of fun. Healthy and fun.
Healthy and fun, yeah.
All right, so the Olympics, have you been digging it? You've been into it? If you're not, that's okay. It's okay if you're not.
So we've had it on in the background during the day. Watched soccer yesterday, basketball, obviously, in the afternoon. And then the 1,500 meter, just watched. Cole Hawker. 21 to 1 odds, I believe.
Yeah.
Came from like 5th place or 7th place, whatever it was.
5th place down the street, like 300 meters to go. He's sitting in 5th place.
That's unreal.
See, that's the kind of fun stuff with the Olympics. Like, again, I'm a hoop nerd, so obviously I'm going to watch the men's Olympic team. Sure. Slaughter folks.
Yes.
Which is what we should be doing as Americans in basketball, slaughtering people. And so that happened yesterday against Brazil, and they should be hearing the national anthem with all those guys standing on the podium. But it's the cool things like that 1,500. Because again, I totally dork out on the Olympics. I don't watch everything, but I'm like you. I have it on the background, waiting to see something catch my eye, right? And that 1,500 meters, I don't even know why I watched it, right? I'm just sitting there and it's on. I was getting up and I was going to, run off to the kitchen to grab something to drink, and they were getting ready to run it. So I'm like, okay, I'll just see what happens, right? Because I didn't know ahead of time. Yeah. But I didn't read it. And so I watched it, and then you see the Americans, especially the dude, our boy Cole, coming from 5th in the last 300 meters. And that thing was the pace of that thing was nuts from the beginning. I got tired watching it. And so it's races like that where you see a guy, nobody knows who the hell he is.
Right.
Even though he's an American on the team,
Yeah.
nobody knows who he is. And all of a sudden, now people are talking about him the next day at water coolers. Like, you see that 1500?
Yeah.
That Cole, whatever the heck his name. Did you see that? It was that's the stuff the Olympics is cool with me, is stories like that come out, right? And that and the we were joking about the guy shooting the Turkish guy.
Yeah.
Just kind of walked out of the stands with a cigarette and a beer in his hand, and he won a medal in shooting.
Yep.
And of course, the pole vaulter, who has become what he's become. Somebody said it was great. No one has ever lost, but has won the way the pole vaulter has.
Yeah, that's true.
He might walk away as the biggest winner at the Olympics. But anyway, the 1,500 meters, it's just, here's a guy again, 21 to 1, like you said, was sitting in 5th. And all of a sudden, he gets an opening. They said he had one of the best kicks in the world. Like, his kick is really good. He's just never in position because he's so far back typically.
Right, sure.
And then he kicked, and everything worked out, and the Olympic gods smiled on him. And now this is a guy, and he said this. I saw the interview post race. He goes, I hit the line. I realized my life just changed.
Oh yeah, 100%. See, I think that's the coolest part now, right? And it's changed so much in the last 10 years because now these guys are making so much money through social media endorsements, right? So like, you win a gold medal, and yeah, it's not just, okay, yeah, that gold medal is worth, whatever it is in the United States, 53,000 or whatever. Now that has a tangible value on social media. Like, you will be able to monetize the heck out of that forever.
Yeah.
Like, you will be making millions of dollars just from that. And he's got such a cool story, too. I mean, just in the last couple of years, he grew up in Indianapolis, went a 4.36 mile in 8th grade, a 4.36 mile in 8th grade. 2021 decided to forego his remaining eligibility at the University of Oregon to professionally run under Nike. And then here we are a couple years later, 2024 in Paris, and he wins the gold medal. It's
crazy.
It's pretty cool.
And the flip side, real quick, is, like you say, making money is losing money. And, the 100-meter runner, Richardson, the female who was supposed to win the 100, she wins a silver. And again, she got beat by a legit runner in the 100.
Sure.
But she lost money. Winning that, you win a silver, you think that's cool. No, she was expected to win the gold. She didn't win the gold. That cost her money.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I hate to say this, but it's like the U.S. gymnastics team. 2 days ago, or was it 2 days ago? Yeah, it was Monday. It was Monday morning. They pretty much underperformed there. But that's just kind of the standard, right? That the U.S. has set now. It's almost non-attainable at times,
Right. It's just interesting, the backstories of how you can make yourself with the guy in the 1,500 meters, and then if you don't win a gold and you're expected, just what it can cost you.
Right. Yeah.
Not just as a competitor, but like in your bank account.
No, 100%.
This Olympic stuff, man.
Yep.
All right. Today, I believe, is August 7th? Michael
Yes, August 7th.
It's a greatest day in the history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We'll do that next. Ed Bird here on The Game. We're sitting here August 7th, the greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK halftime show. Terry Ford, Michael Gillespie's here, Ed Bird running the ship for us as we roll to the top of the hour and the post-game show with Jay and Elijah. And then you're gonna play Jay Phillips Friday. Correct, Michael Gillespie?
Yes, I will.
You will be Jay Phillips.
Yes.
Hey, you got to wear a soccer shirt.
Is he moving his daughter on Friday? Is that what he's doing?
He's got it coming up. He's got days now that are moving days.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving days for the daughter. So I don't know which one it is because he's got 4, right?
That doesn't sound fun.
And he moves them. All of them go to schools, have to move them around.
Right.
It's funny. He was like, yeah, I got to do this because last year I was sweaty dad. He was moving stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not 35 anymore, bro.
No, definitely not. Even at 35, I'm 35, and I don't want to move anything. I barely want to move my legs.
Remember when you were like early 20s? Most of your buddies were still single.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, I got a case of beer and I'm ordering some pizzas. Yep. Can you help me move? Oh, hell yeah, I'm in.
Absolutely.
Now try that now at our age.
No.
Hey man, I got pizzas and some beer. You want? I really can't do it.
Yeah, I can't. We got that thing.
Got that thing.
Yeah.
Kids got that thing.
I gotta go paint a fence.
Right, and then they hang up the phone going, there's no way I'm doing that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I had a buddy just moved right down the street, and I felt so bad. None of us helped him out. He sent the text, and we were like, oh, yeah, sure. Saturday morning. That sounds great.
Until Friday. So you get to Friday, and you're like, okay, we got
You're like, oh, wait. I got that walk that I have to do.
This is when you use the wife.
Yeah.
No, the wife has something I got to go do with the wife. You know how it is.
I have used her as an excuse for so many things. Yeah, sorry, Caroline doesn't want to do it. Or yeah, sorry, whatever it is.
Oh yeah, and then you look at her and go, I'm getting ready to use you as the excuse here. We're good. Yep. And she's like, yeah, because I'm going to use you for 1 and 2 days.
Yes, 100%.
That's the way it always works.
That is a good team.
So our boy Jay will be moving one of those kids around for school. On Friday, so you'll play Jay Phillips. All right, greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. A ton of these today. On this day in 2021, Kevin Durant scores 29, leads Team USA to his 3rd gold himself and the team's 4th consecutive gold medal, and that was in Tokyo in 2021. When it happens this year, because it should, Durant then 4 gold medals.
Yep.
He's already yesterday became the leading
scoring
scorer
record. Yeah.
In Olympic. Look, you can like him, you can think he's weird with his burner accounts on social media, whatever. Kevin Durant might be the most efficient scoring machine I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah,
he's unbelievable.
Absolute freak. I loved that game yesterday. I don't know how much you saw, but the way these guys are passing the basketball, I know that just sounds stupid, but
it's true.
The way they are passing and cutting is, to me, it is different than like anybody else in the Olympics right now.
Sure.
And that's why they're going to win. I mean, other than they're freak athletes, but they're sharing the ball, which is amazing. And it's great basketball. It's fun basketball. Wow.
Well, again, I love that because that's how I was taught to play basketball when I was a kid. Move the ball and move without the ball.
Yes.
And that's what they're doing. And it all starts, honestly, with LeBron because LeBron's kind of running point.
Yes.
And LeBron is very unselfish.
7 assists yesterday.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. I mean, and LeBron looks at his team and goes, I don't have to score points. I'm just going to pass the rock.
Right.
And it becomes contagious. Everybody starts moving the ball, making the extra pass, cutting. And they've been fun to watch.
I love Devin Booker, getting involved. And, Joel Embiid is just a different human, too. And, that's so fun. Fun story, I still think one of the greatest basketball players that I've ever seen play at CLA was Devin Booker when they were here with Kentucky.
Yeah.
That guy just, you knew. He's like, that is a dude who belongs in the NBA today.
And Kentucky fans will say, yeah, and Cal had him coming off the bench.
Yeah.
As a freshman.
Right.
But yeah, Booker, that whole look, you got to quit comparing things to the Dream Team. You got to stop that.
Yeah.
You have to that nonsense has to go away.
Too. Yeah.
It was a specific special situation, a specific time with a certain group of players.
Sure.
You need to stop it. Just look at this team for what it does. Don't go, well, they got X amount of all NBA guys on this team compared to Dream. Stop comparing to the Dream Team. I know everybody wants to do it for clicks and views and listens, and it's a low-hanging fruit. Yeah. But it's ridiculous. It's asinine. This team is going to get themselves their gold medal, and they'll have their place in the pantheon of all the others. But the Dream Team thing was a different deal. It just was. And the world is better now. You're not going to go trample everybody like the Dream Team did. Right. It's just not going to happen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Different level of basketball across the world. I mean, the NBA has become a global sport.
Look at the last few MVPs. Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
Just,
not America.
No. 2016, some young girl named Katie Ledecky won a gold medal in the 400-meter freestyle at Rio. She was, 10, 12, 8 back then or whatever. And now she's the most decorated female swimmer in the history of U.S. swimming.
Do you see that the ACC is still claiming her, by the way?
Why not?
It's ridiculous.
I mean,
I hate it. I hate it so much. Like, okay, yes, we all know Stanford is now in the ACC, but
all those years she swam in the ACC.
I'm like, and you know what? Tyler and I had a really good conversation about this last week. Like, does that open Pandora's box for will they have like the ACC Legends class? Include like Tiger Woods.
Sure. Well, remember the iconic ACC game between Cal and Stanford with the band. Great ACC game.
Right. That was for the ACC title, right? The Atlantic title on the Pacific Ocean.
Of course they're going to take credit for all of it. Absolutely they will.
Ridiculous.
Ichiro on this day in 2016 got his 3,000th major league hit.
Nice.
I was working in Seattle. Yeah. Ichiro's rookie year.
That was with the Mariners.
Yeah,
right?
He was when he was MVP and rookie of the year. Ichiro Mania. I mean, he was unreal that year. I mean, that's when Seattle won 116 games and got upset by the Yankees in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Ichiro was a thing. That was a phenomenon in Seattle. All right. Also, on this day in 2007, much to the disgust of the Major League Baseball world, Barry Bonds hits home run number 356 to pass Hank Aaron. Now, again, noticeably absent from Barry Bonds' day was Commissioner Bud Selig.
Sure.
And Hank Aaron.
Sure.
That tells you everything you need to know right there. Everything you need to know. On this day in 2004, Greg Maddux wins his 300th game, 22nd pitcher in Major League history. And he did it as a member of the Chicago Cubs. People forget he went back to the Cubs.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that was, let's see, there's another one. I knew there was one more. In this day in 1999, Wade Boggs became the first player to homer for his 3,000th hit.
Wow.
And he did it as a member of the Tampa Bay Rays. People forget he went to the Rays at the end of his career. And remember the Hall of Fame thing? He was going to have a Rays hat and all that other nonsense. But anyway, so Wade Boggs has 3,000 hits. That's the greatest day in the history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. A lot of cool stuff on this
good
one.
Stuff. A lot of baseball.
The one
baseball.
You'll remember this. 1907, Walter Johnson got his first career victory.
I was 6.
I was a little older than you. I was 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, that's it right there. 1-800-GOT-JUNK, sponsoring the greatest day in the history of the world. We will come back. Our Firehouse sub text of the hour. We'll get to those, 803-404-6100. Also, we might yip a little bit with Jay Phillips as the post-game show is coming up here on The Game. Time for our Firehouse Sub Text of the Hour. Terry Ford, Mike Gillespie, Ed Bird, firing up everything to make sure we don't, again, he's kind of in charge of the dump button, because how many times have you cussed during this show?
More than I can count.
Wow. Who knew?
I just did it right now, but he bleeped me out.
Thank God Ed hit the button.
That's right.
All right, Firehouse Sub Text the Hour. We were talking about earlier the Georgia kicker with the glasses.
Yes, Rodrigo Blankenship.
Blankenship,
Thank
yes.
you.
So thank you on the text line for that. Rodrigo Blankenship. And by the way, because I do have a tradition now on this radio show of getting in here after 12, a texter, ready? He's like, all right, we do have to start taking dollar bets. I need 1204, baby. Boom, 1204. So texter would have won. It's like a roulette. It's like roulette.
Yeah, right.
Spin the wheel. Come on, baby.
Yeah, big money. Big money.
Yeah, Daddy needs paid. 1204, Ford. Let's go. So hey, you're welcome. Hope I got you a few bucks there on that. We've talked about a bunch of stuff with Carolina football. And, we're getting a little bit over 2.5 weeks before it gets teed up. How are you feeling about this? Okay, you go 5-7 last year, which is a disappointment to a lot of folks. But to be fair, the Vegas over-under was 5.5.
Yes. And it should have been 6.
Yeah.
Carolina should not have lost to Florida.
No, you should have.
Florida was very lucky
in 6
so many ways.
Which, and you and I talked about this off the air, would change the entire conversation of this offseason.
It would have.
Beat Florida.
It would have, yeah. Well, and it doesn't even necessarily matter how you do in that bowl game. No. You just got to one.
And the conversation would be, wow, with all of the adversity you had, you still found a way to get to a bowl game. Nice job.
And with all of the adversity through the first 3 years, Shane Beamer would have gone to a bowl game in each of his first 3 seasons.
Changes
Which is not what a ton of coaches, have done in their first couple of years.
Especially when you were handed programs coming off a 2-win season.
Right.
So, but you did go 5-7. So now the narrative has changed. Now this team, it feels like it's deeper. They hit the portal. They got more veteran guys coming in. They still have a really good recruiting class as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, the schedule might not be the bear it was the year before, but it's still very difficult because it's the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah, you're basically trading Georgia for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and so you've got a good amount of question marks on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of potential. So taking that all mixed up, where are you at? Where are you at with this guy mid-August, roughly, or almost mid-August?
A lot of people have predicted 5-7. Maybe 4-8. I don't see that. I think there's a lot of talent on this team. I think the defense is going to show up this year. I really like Lenora Sellers as well. I know there's a small sample size that we've seen, but I love the fact that he can run. Everybody knows this, but I'm a Florida guy at the height that I've seen. Right, was Tim Tebow. I love spread offenses. Love them. Like, if I could run a spread offense for my program, I would every single year. I love the fact that Carolina's going to have a quarterback now that can run the football when the pocket breaks down, because that wasn't there the last couple of years. It's interesting. Dow Loggins had to get really creative with what they did, moving the pocket out for Spencer Rattler. To me, I don't think you're going to have to get that creative, because now you've got sort of a safety net there with your quarterback who can get you a couple yards with his feet or more. So I love that part. Obviously, I don't love where that receiver room is right now, just because I don't know if there's a whole lot of positivity that's coming out of that right now. Not to say that there won't be over the next 2 weeks, but again, there's just a lot of question marks, the depth of the offensive line. I say all of that to say I think there is a path to 6 wins there. I do think, though, it starts with going 2-0 against Old Dominion and Kentucky. Because if you can get to 2-0, you get back home against LSU. LSU's got a brand new quarterback, by the way, right? There are a lot of these teams that Carolina's playing this year have new quarterbacks. So, guess what? LSU's one of them at home. Williams-Brice. I think it's a noon kick, isn't it? I think it's a noon kick.
Yeah, I think it's a nooner.
Which that's not super ideal, but it's still going to be loud as heck in there.
Oh, yeah.
And, third game of the season, you hope, you can rattle Nussmeier a little bit and, Who knows? Maybe it gets you to 3-0 with Akron coming to town the next week, and then it's kind of set up really, really well. So I'm not super, let's call it doom and gloom, right? Like Beamer said a couple years ago. I'm not going to sit here and say that I see a path to 8 or 9 wins. There are 8 ranked teams on that schedule, right? And I think that the majority of those teams have a better roster than USC this year. But I do think I don't think a bowl game is out of the question at all. Like I don't think that 4-8, 5-7 is a strong possibility. I think it's more 6-6.
Yes, I feel like there's 6 wins in here.
Yeah.
Now again, you can say, well, Tara, where are you going to get those last couple? And
Right.
I feel like there are a lot of teams, even though a lot of these teams are going to be favored over South Carolina, and like you said, on paper, these teams are going to look better. I just feel like in a season, we go back a couple years, who thought that South Carolina would beat Tennessee and Clemson in back-to-back weeks, especially after getting worked in the swamp the way they did.
Right. Well, and Texas A&M, at home too. I know that the difference in that game was a kickoff return for a touchdown ultimately, but Beamer has found ways to win football games, and I think you can't discount that. Again, Florida got really lucky last year, really, really lucky. There's one ball bounces their way, and it's just a totally different ball game if that ball hits the ground, right? Like we all know what play I'm talking about,
right?
And so that's why I think USC's a whole lot closer. Like last year, I think is kind of the anomaly under Shane Beamer, and again, there are a lot of big names on this schedule, but I'm just not sure how great, those rosters are. I think they're probably better from top to bottom than South Carolina, but, it almost seems like sometimes we look at these schedules and there's just a lot of logos, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of like a logo schedule. And, when you really start to dive deep, I mean, Clemson's a deep team. They are, but they might have some quarterback issues. Who knows? Is Cade Klubnik the guy? I mean, that is a massive question.
That offense has not been very offensive. It's been offensive.
Right. I mean, Phil Maffa is probably the best running back in the ACC, but who knows? He's still, he's got to impress me too this year. So, there are some questions for Clemson at the end of the year, against Carolina. So I think there's a path to 6, man. I really do. I'm not completely sold on a lot of the guys that are saying 4-8, 5-7.
Because, look, a lot of these teams, whether they're, right now favored against South Carolina and they might look better on paper to a point, most of these teams have some question marks in some way, shape, or form. They just do. You go all the way down the schedule, not every game, but there's over half of your opponents, whether it's quarterback, replacing wide receivers, replacing a lot of defensive guys, offensive lines.
LSU's got a whole ton of holes on their defense.
Yeah.
And that, people aren't talking about that.
No,
but again, right? It's the logo.
Exactly. That's right. Oklahoma, they're always really good with replacing their entire offensive line of a new starting quarterback.
Right.
And who knows if Brent Venables is the right guy for the job.
Right.
So, hey, good hanging out with
you, man. I appreciate it. This was fun.
We'll do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
When you can play Tyler Head again.
Sounds great.
Nice work. Michael Espy hanging out with us. Terry Ford, nice job. Ed Bird, post-game show's next.
Thanks, man.